Finance Scrutiny Board. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I know we have Irene Mann. Emily?
That's right. We've received apologies from Councillor Irene Mann and Councillor Peter Jones.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you very much. Second item on is the personal and prejudicial interests for members. Any? No, right, okay. The second item is the prohibition of whipped votes. Well, I think that goes without saying. And item 4 is public questions. Have we any, Emily?
No public questions today, no.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we go on to item 5, which is the Welsh Language Standards Annual Report. Is Sarah taking it? Or do you, Louise or Robert, which do either of you want to make comment before Sarah?
I'm okay. Robert, did you want to?
Yeah, no, I think it's over to Sarah.
Yeah, we can maybe chip in later if there's.
Talk us through the report, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. I'll briefly just highlight some key points from the report and then take questions. But you'll see in the report we've highlighted it is new format this year because of guidance from the Welsh Language Commissioner. That only came out in September last year. Overall, very good progress, though. I think despite COVID, as you know, last year staff, councils, everyone diverted onto COVID work, but generally the report showing, I think, good progress despite that, to be fair, in terms of everything that we had to do. Just to highlight some points, so obviously we've tried to show in the report updates across the standard groups in terms of what we've managed to achieve during the year. Service delivery standards continue to be a priority for us for two reasons. One, because there's the greatest number of them for us to achieve, but also we have had complaints in that area during the year. Not many, it has to be said, but it is the main area where we do get complaints. The report also shows the number of employees with Welsh language skills, and we've shown that with non-schools and then schools staff. And particularly, obviously, we want to increase the number of Welsh speakers that we have within the workforce. So when we look at the 5-year strategy and plan in the current year, it's one of the things that we're going to review and focus on is how can we attract more Welsh speakers to the council, but also look at enhance more training as well for our existing staff. The training that's happened in last year, despite COVID, again, was good. We've had some good take up of the courses, but I think we're looking at the 5-year plan, how can we increase that further? And you'll also see that we've reviewed and updated the complaints policy as well. So I got some very helpful and good feedback from both the Ombudsman and the Welsh Language Commissioner. So we reflected all of their comments into the revised complaints policy, which I have attached also to the report for you. So generally, no areas of concern for the committee, but I think considering COVID, some good progress, but happy to take questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Louise, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, very briefly, I should have said at the beginning, I just wanted to basically, thank Sarah and all the officers working on this in obviously very difficult circumstances over the last year in particular, where things have had to be turned around at great speed and with accuracy, and obviously it's been very, very difficult to do that. So it's obviously it's sort of part of my portfolio in terms of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act and the equalities, the strategic equality plan, and the new integrated impact assessments and things like that as well. So yeah, obviously the Welsh Government have set ambitious targets for us, and I think we're rising to the challenge to try and do that. And doing dysgu Cymraeg, I'm trying to learn myself at the moment, and I know it's very difficult. So it's fantastic to give the opportunities to our staff to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I don't quite remember where it was in the report, but there was one of your standards, and it was about the staff, using the bilingual signature and out of office and all those kind of things. But councillors, we don't have a menu that we can use, if I can put it that way. So it's all right if you're a cabinet member, because I'm sure the staff can help you. And to ask Democratic Services for the rest of us is a bit of an ask. So if we could be sent a list of, you know, things that we can put on by our signature, it would be easier. Then we can sort of, you know, pick the one that's most appropriate. You know, that, you know, I'm out of office until, well, you put the date in, fine, and that's it. But to try and remember it, and you might want to change it for different, you know, scenarios, like if you're ill or whatever. So, you know, it would be useful if we could just have a small list of things that we could actually use ourselves, and then we're not actually going to be in breach of anything either. So perhaps you can take that on board for us. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? No?
Yeah, yes, I got.
Oh,
my
yeah,
hand
sorry,
up.
Peter, I can see your hand up now.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Just a couple of questions about the Welsh Translation Service, if I can. Pleased to see the, I think it's 500,000 extra words you translated. I think largely due to the use of automation, most probably, which you know is very pleasing to see. We're actually using new techniques to try to improve the service to people. I noticed that in a couple of budgets in the past, I'm not sure this budget, but certainly past budgets, there have been some quite ambitious cost savings allotted to the Welsh Translation Unit, which I don't think were ever achieved. Are we still aiming to get cost savings out of the Translation Unit, or do we think that we've now reached them most probably the most cost efficient service we can deliver?
Yeah, so cost efficient. I mean, there isn't any savings more to come out of the Welsh Translation Unit. And to be fair, you know, you'll see in the report there's the standards officer, and we've made some extra capacity for simultaneous translation as well. So no, I mean, it's a joint service with Neath and Port Talbot. So obviously, what we're doing is reviewing later on in the year, once they've gone through their own council restructure. We're looking at then how we can look at the demand on both sides and how we want to take the service forward jointly in the new world, using automation, as you say, but also with perhaps more meetings being virtual, you know, how we then staff that. So we're having that conversation with them this year, and so I'll be able to put that into the next report for you. But yes, no more savings coming out of that area. Just to also, if I could just pick up on Mary's point about the signatures and any additional support. Yes, we've got some things on the internet actually, and I'll signpost you to that so that you can. I don't know, we've got everything that you mentioned, so I'll feed that back to the team. But definitely we've got some stuff on the internet that I can signpost you all to, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was very sceptical about the savings when they first appeared in the budget, as Sarah well knows. Just a couple more questions. I mean, obviously, with meetings going virtual, are you able to actually deliver a virtual interpretation service when you have meetings in Welsh via? Is that possible on a virtual meeting?
Yes, and we've looked at, as part of us bringing in some of the new technology. So you'll be aware we were awarded an e-democracy grant from Welsh Government, which has enabled us to upgrade a lot of the technology that's in both the council chamber and the Gloucester room as well. Part of that is in making sure that we have the best technology to do the simultaneous translation. So yes, we are able to do that if there's a request for it in Welsh.
Okay, and just one more question I can share. I'm a governor of Pentref, and we've recently advertised for a new head teacher, who has been appointed. However, when we gave the advert, of course, had to be bilingual. And when that advert was passed to the translation unit to be translated, and we're talking about quite a short piece of work here, it took 4 weeks for it to come back. So I'm not on that particular issue, but the question really is there not a quick translation service associated with the translation unit, or is it literally just first come, first served?
No, I mean, where it's short things, where we have perhaps some comms that needs to go out, or as you say, short adverts, I think as long as we can get translation by 3 o'clock, we try and do it the same day. So whether it was just unfortunate at that particular time, usually it is quicker than that. So apologise, Councillor Black, it must have just been the timing at that particular area. But we do, if it's short, generally they do manage to turn it around quite quick. I think it's the longer documents and big policy documents. that take longer, but usually the short stuff is pretty quick, so it might have just been a blip.
Yeah, because I know when my wife works at university, there's a 24-hour turnaround on short stuff like that. So I was surprised to hear that. So I just wonder if you had a similar service, and clearly you do. So it must have just slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, it must have done.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I will feed that back, but yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I got Councillor Jeff Jones and then the cabinet member. Councillor Jones.
No, I actually, I thought I'd taken my hand down. Everything I was going to ask has been asked already. Just really reading, the report. It's good to see the number of school children actually, learning Welsh and so on. I think from the downtime for the Welsh language, I think we've actually turned the corner. So that's all I want to say.
Okay, then can I go then to Councillor Robert Smith, the cabinet member?
Yeah, I think Sarah's answered the point I was going to make, or made the point I was going to make. And obviously, the nature of document translation has changed in the last few years. It's, the actual translation can be done online, but then that leaves the proofreading as the crucial bit. And I think it's a different way of working rather than less hours to go into it. And the tasks have changed, but it is still the same attention needs to be given.
Okay, thank you. Given that we had a sign put on the roads and that it indicated people were out for lunch and not the name of the road, I think you are right. The proofreading is important, and our colleagues.
And look what happened yesterday, Chair.
In North Wales, yes.
North Wales, yes.
Well, it may well be true. You don't know, Robert. That's a fact.
That was a Google Translate thing, though, wasn't it? Not the actual Welsh was correct.
Maybe
that's right. Yeah, but it's that it proves the need for proofreading, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. Well, something Facebook, Google translated. That was the issue. It wasn't the proofreading issue either. Yeah.
Hello, is the training available to members, Sarah?
Sorry, Chair, you went off then. Could you just repeat your question?
Yeah, the training that you've indicated in the report, is it available to members or is it just staff?
Yes, no, available to members as well. Yeah.
Okay, can we advertise that? Because I'm not aware people are fully aware that there is a training facility for members.
Yeah, no problem. I'll feed that back. Absolutely.
Okay. Anyone else got any questions or comments?
Sorry, Chris, I forgot to ask as well. Perhaps I misread in the report. I think there was some sort of recommendation somewhere that, when we advertise for people to be employed by the local authority, that Welsh is, I don't know if the word compulsory is right or whatever, but is that right? Because I must admit, I'm a big supporter of the Welsh language, but it would put a lot of able people actually off. Can you comment on that?
Well, in the recommendations, what we've talked about is exploring whether we can make more posts mandatory Welsh. So not everyone, but where there is an opportunity to make a post mandatory Welsh or a higher skill level of Welsh than we currently have, exploring that we can do that, and that's what we're going to look at as part of the 5-year strategy. Now, it won't work for all posts, you're right, and actually we can't exclude people because there are some posts which are quite difficult to recruit into because of the certain skills that they have and the way the job market is for certain skills. So we have to be careful about it. But if we can up the Welsh skill level and we can make some posts that are mandatory Welsh, then we're going to try and explore that with directorates over the coming year.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, can I thank Robert, Louise and Sarah for coming to the scrutiny this morning. We will send a letter off concerning the report. Okay, Sarah, you put your hand up.
Thank you. It was just finally from me just to say a big thank you to the Welsh Translation Unit because they did an amazing job during COVID. As you know, we had a huge amount of things that we had to translate very quickly to support everyone, staff, councillors and the community, and they did a wonderful job. So I just wanted to pass on my thanks and to them for all their hard work. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure we can put that in the letter as well, Sarah. Okay, if that's all, thank you very much for attending. Right, the next item on the agenda is the overview of the bylaws. And can I welcome Craig to this meeting this morning to go through the report?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Craig Davis from the Legal Department. I've been asked to provide an update or a review, if you like, as to the process of how we make bylaws. Have you all had sight of the report? That I say that because I don't propose to fully read through it all, because well, if you've had sight of it, then it's there in black and white. But currently, the local authority has 33 active bylaws. Some of those date back to the turn of the century, and some we haven't got any new bylaws post the year 2000. So there may be scope for some sort of element of reform. To make bylaws, now what I will say is I've intentionally made my report general to cover as everyone rather than be specific towards individual wards. I understand that there was appetite from certain areas to deal with certain points, but I think if we wish to deal with such specifics, then perhaps it should be a direct contact in relation to that, unless, of course, at the conclusion you've got the direct questions you want to give then. Essentially, bylaws are made to give a good rule of government in whole parts of area and to prevent or suppress nuisance. Now, historically, I think making a bylaw was a difficult thing because you would have to go to Welsh Government for confirmation. You've seen in the report that since 2012, things have slightly changed in that we, for the majority of bylaws, I think are relevant to this authority, probably can be dealt with, if you like, in-house. Either way, the process of going forward is pretty much the same, in that there has to be a written statement, there has to then be a consultation, and then once the consultation's back, another effectively written statement which sets out what the view is, i.e. do we proceed with it and why. Now, all in all, there's quite specific timings really as to how bylaws can be made. The initial written statement, from what I can see, appears should be out for about 4 weeks. The consultation should definitely be 12 weeks. Then at the conclusion of that, with the second written statement, that's effectively the notice, and that's when the clock starts for 6 months. So in that 6-month period, the officers will have to prepare the draft bylaws, and they have to be published on the website. So I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of publishing and things like that. The reality is, members, those are matters for the officers. It's in black and white. They can't not get it correct. It's a set process, really, and also what needs to be contained in that. Now, ultimately, as I started out to say, that we've got the 33 bylaws. Some of them could do with a freshen up. Now, on the Welsh Government website, they've got model bylaws, which are really 90% of a correct, fully drafted document. So if one of yourselves were to go to the head of services in whichever specific area, say seashore, promenades, and say, look, we wish to have a new bylaw or update a current bylaw, then they would direct their officers to deal with the matter. If the officers were to look at the model bylaws, it's a totally updated, refreshed version of of what we currently have. So therefore, it could be, well, I'm cautious to say that this process can easily follow through, because it's easy for me to say that because I'm not the one writing the reports and all of the documents. But something that should be also be a consideration, which I've got absolutely no insight into. I can only tell you how and tell you why it should be. Something that perhaps the head of services should have involvement is if they've got the manpower to be able to do this, because for those 6 months and perhaps then 3 before to 9 months, the preparation of a new bylaw or revoking a current bylaw is probably going to take over a certain officer's life for a large part, because they'll have to deal with all the consultations and things. So it should always be a consideration as to where the manpower is as to make it, but then a massive factor is the manpower to service it. I'm well aware that in the last scrutiny meeting, Adam Hill referred to the PSPOs. A bylaw, in my eyes, and a PSPO aren't that dissimilar. What the difference between the two for me really are, because you're still going to do consultation and go through very much the same process. Well, the big difference is that a bylaw, if you make one today, is permanent until you revoke it. The PSPO lasts for 3 years. So that's perhaps a consideration to be made. In or on the making of a bylaw, officers will be needed, trained officers in giving fixed penalties, because that's one of the other benefits that's come from the 2012 changes. Now you can include fixed penalties. If you look at the bylaws on the website, you'll note that none of our bylaws refer to fixed penalties. So therefore, perhaps that's something that could also be updated, because currently where we are, everything is court effectively. So what that also means is that there's an evidential element to this. If a new bylaw were to be made, a officer would be able to spot someone, say, on the seashore. They could go over and give them a fixed penalty. It sets out that a standard fixed penalty should be £75, but as we know, the parking ticket, if you pay early, it can be the reduction to £50. If that person pays the fixed penalty, the matter's done and dusted. If they don't, legal can get involved and we can prosecute the person for not paying the fixed penalty. Or the other road to go down is it goes straight to court. But it's probably best that fixed penalties are factored in for an overall cost element, because it's quick, it's easy, it's done. If you go straight for court, I would be saying to the officers, right, I need a statement from you. Is there any CCTV? There's lots of more factors to go involved if you go down the court and evidential route. I've kind of tried to fill in around the outside of the report rather than going into the depth of the report. Are you happy with that? Have you got any further questions which you wish to ask me? Something which I haven't talked about, which is in the report, is the revocation of current bylaws. It's fairly simple. If you're making a new bylaw, you just add that paragraph into the new bylaw. Or if you just simply want to remove something that's obsolete, it's again pretty much a one-page document, and fairly straightforward. But again, that's me saying that, not being the person who writes those reports and those documents. Ultimately, for me, it would come to legal for advice and or for the ceiling. So it's really going to be a matter for the consideration, as I say, of those departments. Are you happy with that, or would you like me to go further in depth? I'm conscious that I don't want to send you to sleep, or
I think, Craig, if I got a couple of members who put their hand up to ask questions, if we deal with that, and if there's any need to go into any further detail, then perhaps we can. The first one to put the hand up is Councillor Peter Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Actually, looking at the list of bylaws on the website, it's fascinating. I'm just wondering, obviously the last bylaw I can see that was made was in 1999. So clearly the 2012 Act won't have, or was it a measure in those days? I'm not sure. Wouldn't have applied, though I was involved in scrutinising that particular legislation. But there was also some very old stuff on there. I mean, there's one from 1885 on the regulation of hackney carriages, for example. So I'm just wondering, I mean, do we ever carry out a review of these bylaws with a view to actually either revoking or updating them? It does seem to me that would be beneficial. I mean, obviously, I don't know how many hackney carriages we have around Swansea nowadays, but you know, maybe the Lord Mayor's prayed about it the only time. I'm just wondering. It just seems to me that there is overdue for a review of some sort.
Yes, that's the point I was getting to as well. You know, firstly, I don't believe there is a review. I understand that I've been with the local authority. Well, I think it's 3 years this week actually, but prior to me, I understand a few years ago there was an attempt to lasso all of the departments to find out what bylaws you've got to then put them onto the website. So perhaps they should have given consideration then. Going forwards, I think you're probably right. They should be, because there are these changes. This is all capacity point though, but
yeah,
if there was that capacity, there would be perhaps some benefit because things could be updated. But the one specific bylaw you actually refer to is the hackney carriages, which comes hand in hand with the private hire vehicles. I do a lot of licensing, and actually the hackney carriage legislation is the 1800s legislation.
Yeah.
And we currently use, if a new taxi driver came today to apply, we would hand them a bundle, which is an application, the bylaws and the private hire conditions. So they're actually relevant and used.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's typically the one you pick, but no, they are relevant.
The other one that stood out for me was I think in 98, the employment of children, which I thought was a bit of an aberration, because I thought that was covered by parliamentary law, and yet we made a bylaw which seemed to be very, very detailed around that. I'm just wondering, it does seem to me that in terms of the role of bylaws, that it seems to me they're there to enforce, but we seem to be actually making the law with this one as to how the difference.
Yes, and I think the point you're making is that, and you've said it in the report, you can't make a bylaw when there's already a law in place to cover it. So that bylaw perhaps is standing on the toes of the legislation. So perhaps, yes, points to be made there.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a bit of an aberration, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah. And then the final point I wanted to make, Chair, I mean, obviously, I know some councillors have raised the need for new bylaws in relation to issues they have in their ward, particularly on the foreshore. I noticed there are bylaws, in fact, there for the regulation of the foreshore. So really, I think the issue and Craig made the difference between a public order, PSPO, I think it was, isn't it? And the difference between that and a bylaw. I mean, is it appropriate to use a bylaw to try to deal with issues when we have to enforce them as opposed to the police enforcement? Can we use the police to enforce bylaws in that way?
Yes, you can use the police to enforce certain bylaws. Not all, but some. I'd have to go back. We get to the specifics then, so we have to look at it and then go back to the legislation. But yes, what you can do is you can make, on the making of a bylaw, you can come to an agreement with the chief constable that they will be involved in the enforcement of it. So it can be dealt with that way as well. But it goes kind of back to what the point you made earlier about other legislation. Now, we're not speaking about specific instances, but if we were to say the general nuisance or elements of public order issues. Now, if there were people causing a disturbance within a public place, well, there's legislation in relation to that, in relation to public order offences, and then it would absolutely become a police matter where they should be dealing with it in the first instance. In my eyes, because I used to be a criminal defence solicitor for 14 years and then switching across to prosecution, I always think that these matters should be police instances first. And really that comes back down to the crux of why you're making a bylaw, because there should be consideration to other avenues of disposal prior to having to make the PSGO, the bylaws. And it was mentioned in the last meeting in relation to the partnership with the police. Perhaps there should be a greater push for them to provide assistance in those areas too. But again, it comes down to the bodies issue, doesn't it?
Okay.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Phil Downing.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mostly on the same line as Peter, with these bylaws, that they should be updated, because it looks like once you get a bylaw, it's there for life. Until it, because two I just picked out was the horse-drawn omnibus, and the other one is Porthcawl Harbour, which was, correct at the time because it was West Glamorgan, but now they won't let us across the bridge, so it's no good to us, is it? Yeah, and I think it was right that this was brought to scrutiny to look at, because they do need updated, because there are certain things we could introduce in the city and county of Swansea that bylaws we've got now, and like I said, can just be added to them, which is like a quick fix, then go looking for new bylaws. And when Peter mentioned the Hackney, I did smile at Craig, because I'm on licensing as well. I just want to make the point out that the battery and the clock behind him is the same time on licensing as well. So that's all I got to say on it, is that I'm glad that we did bring it up to look at, because the bylaws do, I don't know where it goes from here. Does it go to another scrutiny or something? But that's something that the letter later on goes to the cabinet member.
I think in first instance it goes to the head of legal, because there are issues, what you've just said about the Porthcawl Harbour one. It's, to be honest, had nothing to do with West Glamorgan. Porthcawl wasn't in West Glamorgan as such. It was that was to do with our harbour trust, and I don't know why because it's Mid Glamorgan County Council, and I don't know why we've got it. To be honest, I have no idea why we've got it. Perhaps it is wisdom knows more than I do, but I don't know why we've got that one. And there's I think the one on children, if I remember rightly, the date on it is pre-Second World War. So yeah, it would. All right, that they do need updating. Right, I got Councillor Linda James.
Hello. Every year I get asked about bonfires in gardens. What are the rules? Well, we don't seem to have any rules in Swansea. Other towns and cities have bylaws about what time you can have a bonfire in an evening and the size of them and various other things. It's my understanding from reading this is that to bring in a bylaw, you go through the appropriate department?
Yes.
Yes. So something like that would be under the environment, yes.
Yes. I'm just looking for the bonfires should come under nuisance, and then there should be specific legislation in regards to that, as to the set timings that you can have them. I haven't got it to hand, but I'm going to quickly look during, and perhaps I could send it to you.
When I've asked in the past, I've been told there is nothing.
Okay, let me check up for that. But yes, my view is that if we want to make an action, or you want to make an action, then it would go to the head of service, and they pass it down to the persons who are most appropriate for that area, or capacity wise.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? I think one of the things, as people pointed out, there's another one here about Cardiff. I don't know why on earth that's in here. You know, the only bylaw we have with Cardiff is to stop them coming here, but that's about it, really. I think if members would like to further update, if they can look through it and come forward with their suggestions, and then we'll send a letter through to Tracy Meredith, Head of Legal Services, and see where we go from there. But I think updating it and modernising it might be a good idea. About producing new bylaws, if there's 1 year about this seashore, I think we need to understand what that one is on the promenade, because, you know, I know one of the questions was asked about, do we look, you know, have we got bylaws about the beaches, etc. I'm not sure if that one covers it, but there are a number on there which, you know, are, well, let's say, difficult to understand, and is that the best way? And I think if, you know, we'll produce a letter, and then in that letter we'll highlight some of the issues that members have just discussed, and then send that off. Has anyone else got any comments or questions? No? Okay, if that's the case, can I ask, thanks Craig for coming along today on this extremely difficult subject, which is it has got quite a lot of problems involved in it, and thank you for your explanation and your time this morning.
Thank you everyone. Just to finish up, Councillor James, I was thinking in relation to the Environmental Protection Act, perhaps section 18, that would be where I would put the nuisance caused by a bonfire.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Councillor Mary Jones.
Sorry, I did have a quick question. It's about fines, and I was looking at the ones for Clyne Valley Country Park and saying, you know, we shouldn't disturb animals, etc. But the fine is, in this day and age, £50. Is there any way that these can be increased without going through a whole process? Because people would probably just pay the £50 today, whereas back in 1984, 85, when these were drawn up, it was a lot of money.
Councillor Jones, I would love to be able to say a nice answer, something to you, but unfortunately the answer is no, we can't. It's written there in black and white as part of the bylaw. If it had to be increased, it would be a case of amendment to the bylaw, which actually means a new bylaw.
All right, okay, thanks.
Okay, is there anyone else? Or Peter?
I was just going to say that it's this. I think when I drew up like my private members bill, there's actually now schedules of fines. So when actually, instead of putting a figure in, you say the fine is relating to a particular class or something like that. So it then moves with inflation. So any modern bylaw might relate to that. I think that's right, Craig. That's certainly what we did in terms of the mobile park homes legislation.
Yes, well, if it would be a modern bylaw made today, you can write in the fixed penalty amount, but again, that casts it in stone. You can also then put about the legislation as in the court route, where you can say category 2 on the scale.
Yeah.
So therefore, the court's fines, you know, do go up in increments and do change over the years. So perhaps that would be the catch-all way around it. But of course, we'd have to write it into it like that.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that if I'll send round the website. I was told not to put links into my document, so apologies, because I will forward them now to the model bylaws, and within those model bylaws, it is written in the way that Councillor Black has set out.
Okay. Anyone else? No? As I say then, thank you very much, Craig, for your time this morning, and we'll keep your copy. We'll put you in a copy into the letter we sent to Tracy. Thank you. Okay. Right. Let's go back. The next item on the agenda is the work plan for 2022. There will be some changes to this due to a number of issues. I've received a couple of letters, one from the users of Swansea Airport, which I will discuss with you all about the current state of the airport and the lease that we currently have with them, which was passed by the cabinet. And in the meantime, I've had something like 20 different emails from different individuals who use the airport to say that the lease is not being adhered to and not being carried out. So I think it's important that we all get involved in that and see what the actual letters say, and then, if possible, fit it into the work plan. I've also had another email, considerable long email from local builders about complaining about our planning department and building department. The problem with that one is, I have to say, it's a personnel issue. And whilst I know we as a scrutiny board look at performance, I'm going to have to take advice, because this one deals with personnel. And I don't think that as a scrutiny board, we can ask the general questions, but I don't think we can deal with the individual personnel. I think we need to seriously think about how we scrutinize, or because it's a request by the public, that we need to take some legal advice on how we go forward with that one, because of the nature of it. I think it's a very, I know it's quite important because it's some of the accusations that are made, but I think we need to take legal advice and talk to the heads of services before we do anything in the public domain with that. Okay?
We ask that you report back on that then at the next meeting, Chair.
Yeah, I will, because that, as I say, Des, I am quite nervous about doing anything like that in the public domain, because it is about our staff. And as such, I think either if we have a closed meeting, that's fair enough. But I think I need to take some more legal advice on that before we go any further.
Okay, completely understand. Thank you.
As you can see on the work plan, there's been some issues. One of them is about the use of data. That's being removed now, and that's going to I think it's January, is it, Emily?
That's penciled in for March at the moment.
So there is some issues around, because they're catching up with the pandemic and the way in which some of these reports are coming forward. And it's a bit like the budget reports. We're having some of the surreal budget reports that we'll likely never see again. So there's the work plan. As I say, there are some issues around that, which I'll report back to you at the next meeting. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your attendance. Emily, do you want to stay on?